Welcome to That 80s Show. Hello, it's Paulo and Dori calling, not Falco. Dori, if Falco called you, what would you say to him?
I'd say, but you're dead. Sorry, too soon? Too soon? Okay, hang on.
No, I'm sure he knows he's dead.
Okay.
That 80s Show, we play out live on a Friday. If you're listening on the podcast, we open up with Vienna calling Falco. Thanks for reminding me, Dori, that he wasn't a one-hit wonder. So definitely a 1.5.
Oh, no. 3-hit wonder. Because don't forget De Commissar.
Yes,
De Commissar, okay. Rock Me Amadeus, Vienna calling. I would say 3-hit wonder. Which does that? That makes you a proper singer. I think if you've had 3 hits, you're good.
Good. Okay, that's fine. I was listening to that song and I was like, oh, there are so many misheard lyrics in the song until I realized it's not in English. So there's a couple of the whole thing.
Exactly.
Oh, Dori, I come to you from a very emotional place this week. Very emotional. Yes, and more emotion than just disdain. Is disdain an emotion?
Possibly.
So I watched the Michael J. Fox documentary.
Oh,
Still.
Yes. And you sent me a message saying, I'm watching the Michael J. Fox documentary, and then there were 100 crying emojis.
Could have been laughing emojis because it's very
No,
fun.
they were definitely crying. Definitely
crying. So Michael J. Fox got a documentary out on Apple TV called Still. It's called a Michael J. Fox movie, and it's about his, you know what, you get this feeling, it's kind of his, I don't want to say swan song, but it could be part of a goodbye to public life, right?
Well, I think he's lasted longer than any of us expected him to. I hate to say it, but it's a fact.
Okay.
He's been living with this disease for a long time.
Yeah, so it tells a story. So, of course, Michael J. Fox got Parkinson's disease. He found out in his late 20s when it first appeared. And this movie obviously tells a story about it. And there's a lot of, one-on-one interviews with Michael J. Fox. I'm going to give you a spoiler because, listen, you have to be in a specific mood to watch this, right? You cannot be in any kind of fragile emotional state. You have to be in one of those moods where you just have to be emotionally strong to deal with seeing this.
Yeah. And that's did you watch the Robin Williams one? I had to brace myself to watch that one as well.
In this, right?
It was hectic.
You got to be in a space, yeah. So it comes straight out the bat. There's not a spoiler alert. This happens in the first 2 minutes. You see Michael J. Fox, because look, we know him, we've seen him, and we see the conditions sitting, but you see him walking, right? And he's walking out of his apartment and down the street. And him and his physio personal trainer, he's got this guy who helps him. And they say that people know you have Parkinson's until they see you walk. Then they go, fuck, you've got Parkinson's. And that's how they open the movie. And it's so jarring. It's so because you go, oh shit, I didn't actually think when you walk how difficult it is, and to see him like that. But it's all the emotions, right? Because it's actually he's actually still so funny. The mind is still 1,000,000% there. He is as sharp as he's ever been, as witty as he's ever been, jokes about it all the time, and obviously uses humor as a coping mechanism. But it's so raw because there's parts where he talks about how he was taking medication to now control it and how he times his medication, and especially when he's still active and making movies and TV shows. And you can actually watch when they're interviewing him how he completely changes when the medication's worn off. They don't cut that. They don't take it.
Yeah.
You see it, and you see him going, it's happening. I need it. And you see everything about him instantly on camera just completely turns. It's so spooky. It's done in this phenomenal way. So yes, it is a documentary, but when he tells his story and he kind of starts out when he was first a kid in Canada and wants to act, starts moving across, they cut footage, home video footage from his movies and TV shows, and then some kind of like setup footage to tell you the story. So you kind of watching it play out with real footage. It's phenomenally done. And there's one part where we know the story. He is on Family Ties, and then they wanted him originally for Back to the Future. They shot with Eric Stoltz, and then they bring him in to now replace. And now they're behind schedule. So he is on this crazy schedule. He was shooting Family Ties in the day, and then shooting Back to the Future at night. And he was he was sleeping in the car in between. And they cut it so amazingly where they've got this like prop, like a made up, a dramatized scene of when he's shooting Back to the Future, although they still cut in parts of Back to the Future, and then they'll cut it like into Family Ties, that it kind of puts you back in that space using this footage. You go, wow, it's so well done, like really polished. They also talk about his relationship. I mean, his wife, who's absolutely one of the lasting Hollywood relationships. They met late 20s. They've been together since the 80s, right?
Yeah, I mean, we did discuss the other people that he had dated before, but in my mind, they've been together forever, and there was no one else ever.
No one else ever.
That was it.
His wife's name is Tracy Pollock, and she met him.
Pollen.
She wasn't. It's Pollock. Pollock.
Pollen?
No, Pollock.
Are we gonna fight about this? I'll tell you why. Because I remember very clearly, because I was very much in love with Michael J. Fox, and I was very much upset when I heard that he was getting married. So
okay,
I had a murder wall. I can't admit it. I had a murder wall.
So they talk about Dori. Is it Tracy Pollen? You drive me nuts now.
I'm driving you nuts. Okay, I'm gonna Google. Jeez, I have to prove it.
Michael J. Fox, Tracy Pollen. You're right. Okay, sorry, you are right. So, but anyway, that's not the point of the story. The point of the story was they met on Family Ties. And he tells a story like, at this point he was on, he counts off in 1 week all the magazine covers that he is on, right? He can list about 12. And so he says he was like absolutely flying at this time. He said he never felt he acted like a jerk, but evidently he was being a jerk, and she didn't buy into it. She just completely shut him down, disinterested in who he was. And he's like, oh my God, this is amazing. And that's what's kept him. He's felt that's what kept him grounded through his whole career, that he could have gone way off. And
also, she played his girlfriend on Family Ties. That was the character. So it's like, maybe she was like, this would be such a cliche. There's no way in hell I'm doing this. Like, not a chance.
Listen, it works. There's some really nice moments with his family. And he's just like a goofy dad, at the end.
How many kids do they have?
They got 3 kids.
Okay.
It's 3 or 4. I think they got 3 adult kids. Anyway, there's kid. I know there's a daughter, and then there's a set of twins. Okay. I think there's a 4th.
I'm assuming there's grandkids by now.
No, I don't think so. His kids don't.
Oh, really?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I didn't. If there are, it wasn't made evident in this movie. Also, the oldest daughter is not. You see her, but she doesn't talk. The 2 youngest, the twins, you see them, and there's like one really nice scene where, like I say, he's just shown up as this goofy dad, doesn't know how to use technology, and they joke about the way he replies to them. And he says, you got to understand, I can't reply quickly enough to you because I pick up the phone and I start touching it. Next thing I'm on some website in China. He says, well, what am I supposed to do? So there's some really fun moments like that. It is jarring moments. But the creepiest thing is now, obviously, he picks it up. He says when he first noticed the twitch in his hand, it was after a heavy night drinking with Woody Harrelson. And we've told the story before, him and Woody Harrelson drinking Viper blood, and they were like notorious partiers together, right? So this was after a day with him, and he's like, oh God, what did we do? Like, have I damaged a nerve? Like, typical, this is what happens when we get together. And then obviously goes to the doctor, gets the diagnosis, doesn't tell anybody. And he figures out that the doctor tells him, look, when you're, particularly in your left hand, that's where it starts. If it's at rest, it's going to start acting up, right? So the movie he did after that was the movie The Concierge. Do you remember that movie?
No.
The Concierge. I'd completely forgotten about it.
I don't even know if I've seen it. Okay.
You've seen it. He had the little 1980s curtain hairstyle, the curtain haircut. It's not. I'm not like.
This does not help me.
Sorry, it's the concierge movie. It's called For Love or Money. I'm saying it's called For Love or Money. Okay, it's
For Love or Money.
No, it was released as a concierge.
Sounds
so it's
familiar.
not an 80s movie. It's not an 80s movie. 1993. That's why I don't care.
Okay.
Yes. So it was released as the concierge as well, right? So in that, he's this concierge who's just like the guy in this hotel, and he just makes everything happen, right? And of course, shenanigans. But this is the movie where he's got this amazing 1990s curtains haircut. But this is now kind of like trying to manage this. And they do a supercut of all the scenes where he's now always has something in his left hand. Always. He's always just holding. There's another like close up where he's squeezing his jacket with his left hand. That there's a lot of things when you watch him you're not noticing. But now that you know, it's like, oh my God, he always did something with his left hand. And then of course we know in Spin City, he it started, he was always carrying the briefcase in the left hand, and then they wrote it into the script because he told a few people. So, you know, he had like an arm injury, and then he just came out with it. But it's got everything, but you got to be in the right mood to watch it. It's a tough watch.
I'm looking at it, and I honestly don't think I've watched The Concierge. Like, I don't think I've seen it.
I'll recommend look for a trailer or look for some clips of the movie. You'll recognize it. You have what? You've definitely watched it. You might not recognize the name.
Okay, I don't think so, but okay.
Yeah. So that's Michael J. Fox still. I think it's so he's saying on two hands. He goes, "We're really close to a cure for Parkinson's, but I'm not going to see it." And it's like, oh. It's like he's in his 60s. I mean, come on. That's terribly cruel.
That is sad.
So it's a tough watch, but I'd recommend putting it on your list to watch. Michael J. Fox has 4 kids.
Okay.
Yes, he got 4 kids. Then I want to tell you something else that I've been watching, Dori. Come across this.
Yes.
Actually, maybe you told me about it. Maybe you did. Did you tell me about a TV show called The Town Called Malice?
No.
Okay. Fantastic. Right. So
it wasn't me.
I found it on Showmax, but it's kind of like on HBO or any of those. And it is a Guy Ritchie style London gangster TV series set in the 80s.
Ooh.
Okay. So you come across this family called the Lord family, and they're these like low-level gangsters in London in the 80s. And they're, just like petty crimes, selling fur coats. The family obviously were more notorious gangsters in the day, but they're kind of like, they're old now, and they're trying to keep up with past glories. And then there is a murder, or there's an accidental killing, let's rather say. And the one son, who's really not into the whole family gangster stuff, he now has to run away to the Costa del Sol, which I think only existed in the 80s. And then shenanigans start, right? So it's only showed 2 episodes locally. There are 3 episodes out. The names of each episodes are named after an 80s song, right?
Cool.
So episode 1 is, and Acapulco did this as well. Episode 1 is I Want to Know What Love Is. Episode 2 is Daddy Cool. 3 is 2 Tribes. Then we go, Let's Go All the Way, Cruel Summer, I'm Still Standing, Ghost Town, and Living on a Prayer. Okay, I love that.
Good stuff, yeah.
The soundtrack. So firstly, the look of this, right? The one son has the greatest collection of Fila tracksuits and sports gear that I've ever seen. Okay, he has got this Fila jacket that is, if like you could wrap yourself in the 80s, that's what this jacket would be. The mansion that they go to in Costa del Sol and the nightclub, so all the stuff in Spain. The house isn't particularly 80s, but it's got 80s touches. There's a really cool bar in the house that's very 80s. The nightclub they go to is the most 80s nightclub, Spanish 80s nightclub that you can imagine. But the soundtrack of this, it's kind of like the songs aren't necessarily weaved into the story. They're just going, let's throw a lot of 80s songs at this, and from all genres. I'm just going to read you the songs featured in episode 1. This is just episode 1.
Okay.
Ma Baker, Boney M, which is kind of cusping. I Want to Know What Love Is, Foreigner. And it's a mix of all music. There's pop, there's ska in there, there's I Could Be Happy, Altered Images, there's Going Underground by The Jam, there's I Fought the Law by The Clash, True by Spandau Ballet, there's Video Killed the Radio Star, Relax, Frankie Goes to Hollywood, In Excess with Original Sin, White Wedding, Billy Idol, Sweet Dreams by Eurythmics, Disco by Ottawan, Hold the Line by Toto, Sunday Go by Blondie, and A Town Called Malice by The Jam. Episode 1.
Amazing.
I mean, it is a 80s romp. It's got 80s gangsters, South London gangsters. It's got double crossing. It's got dodgy politicians, and it's only in episode 2. It is an outstanding discovery. Town Called Malice.
I will add it to my list. But I'm wondering, why didn't you do that for your TV show recommendation? Why are you telling us outside of that? Like, you didn't want to save it?
I got something even better.
Oh, you got something even better? Okay.
It's only 2 episodes in.
Okay, so maybe what I'll do is when there are more episodes, I'll watch it and then I'll maybe talk about it in that slot. Because,
we could do that.
Then I can give my point of view.
You also got to go, is it a tight content week? Do we have a lot to talk about? No. Well, let's double up.
But come on.
I could have done Michael J. Fox's documentary recommendation.
Exactly.
No, I have a viewing recommendation, Dori. I have a viewing recommendation that is so bizarre. We've spoken about this story before, but let's go to your movie first.
Okay, because I'm glad that you've got something bizarre, because I've got something, I don't know how do I describe it? Not bizarre, but okay, let me just tell you the story. So I was like, right, I've been doing too many TV series. I need to find a movie this week. So what I did was an experiment. I thought, let me go onto YouTube and just type 80s movie into YouTube and see what comes up. And of course, all the usual things come up, like those, typical, the best rom-coms of the 80s, the best horrors of the 80s, all those. But I kept scrolling, Paulo. I scrolled and I scrolled and I scrolled. And eventually I got to the bottom of YouTube. And right on the bottom was the movie that I'm going to talk about today. Which I shouldn't be laughing because it's a serious movie. It's actually a made-for-TV movie, but it's based on a true story. This is a Lifetime movie. You know what a Lifetime movie is, right?
Yes. It's Lifetime I think Hallmark has taken their shine. But
so kind of like that same
standard
idea.
Yeah.
Well, it's also like, so the whole thing with Lifetime movies they were often had a message in them, often geared towards maybe like teenagers, very largely geared towards women, many of them. And a lot of true stories. And this happens to be one of those true stories. I did not know the story. And I thought, but this movie looks so bad. First of all, it is a very dodgy copy on YouTube. There are scenes where you can't see people's features. Like their face is just one big blur because you can't actually see it. It's that bad quality. But it's absolutely watchable. And also it's like square. Like when you make it full screen, it's square. Yes. Right. So it's that old. But it came out in 1988. So it's not that old, but it's old.
So it's not old. It's just low budget. Because if it came out that late 80s, they had the technology. They just didn't want it. They just didn't want to spend the money.
Really, really like low budget. And the cast is like almost a no-name cast.
So what that is. So talking about these Lifetime movies, right, is that they tended to be very topical, but that meant that they had to shoot quickly. So their like shooting schedules were insane because they had everyone's talking about Satanic Panic. Everyone's talking about Dungeons and Dragons. Everyone's talking about this new drug. We've got to get in and make this movie quick, cheap, and get it onto TV because we got a schedule to fill. So they shot just mad scenes, one take wonders. It's great. If we have time for 2 takes, that is a luxury. They tended to use, like you say, loads of here and there you'd get a pocket of somebody who broke through, but it was pretty much accepted that if you got into these types of movies, that's your career. You've pretty much admitted you do not want to be a star.
I mean, I couldn't tell you who the majority of the people are in this movie. Then there was one name that was, that's a familiar name. Let me see what else he's done. His name's John Plachette. And it's am I just thinking it's a familiar name because of Suzanne Plachette, who was way, way more famous, who, by the way, is his cousin. But let me tell you what...
Suzanne, who is that? I've never heard of a person.
Really? Okay, so Suzanne Plachette was a much more famous actress. Let me tell you some of the things. Oh, she was in Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds. She was, she played Emily Hartley on the Bob Newhart show. She's done a lot. When you see her, if you see a picture of her, you'll go, oh, her, you'll know she's very familiar.
Right.
She's got a familiar face. And so then there's a guy named John Plachette who happens to be her cousin, and he is in this movie. And his other things that he was in, his other claim to fame, is he was on Knots Landing. Do you remember Knots Landing?
Yes.
A very dodgy soap opera type show in the 80s. And he also appeared being the key word, as in he had a role in one episode of shows like Kojak, Magnum P.I., Simon & Simon, Murder, She Wrote, MacGyver, Beauty and the Beast, L.A. Law, etc., etc., etc. He's that guy.
In how many of those was he a corpse?
Well, let's see. I know the characters have names, so I'm assuming. Well, I mean that doesn't mean he wasn't a corpse, though.
Doesn't mean he wasn't a corpse.
It doesn't mean that he wasn't a corpse. But there are names on those shows. It's not like guy in suit. It's not like that, you know.
But I mean, we're talking Lifetime movies, then one-off appearances on quite a good roster of shows. But next stop is softcore porn on the Playboy channel.
Well, it's funny that you mention that because the movie I'm talking about. Funny that you mention that because the movie I'm talking about is a little film called Shattered Innocence.
Oh,
which
sounds. Listen, Dori, before you get into that, I'm looking at some photos of Suzanne Plachette, and she's shattering my innocence. I got to be honest with you, very much a 70s pinup from 1970. Yeah, she was a hottie. I do not recognize her, but
okay. I definitely recognize her. I've definitely seen a bunch of things that she's been in, but and the names was also familiar. So this movie, Shattered Innocence, which is available on YouTube if you can sit through the dodgy quality, it's actually based on a true story about a porn star named Shauna Grant. I don't know if this name rings a bell for you.
Why would it? Why do you think that?
I'm just asking the question. Okay. Yeah. No. So she was a porn star in the early 80s. Her real name was actually Colleen Applegate. And she was a sweet, innocent girl who came from a small town in middle America. And she wanted an extraordinary life. She didn't want to stay in her small town and be bored and work at her father's company. You know, that was where she came from. She was like, I think there are better things for me out there. So she went to California to find fame and fortune. And at this point, I'm actually going to read the description on the YouTube video, which is, I mean, it's posted by some random YouTube person, but they have written the funniest description, which it's actually a bit mean, but so accurate. A young idealistic girl has had it with her boring life and her job at the phone company. She's off to California. Things she has, and then they've got a list. A bad attitude. Unrealistic ideas of the glamour of Hollywood, no job skills, no qualifications, in inverted commas, bad boy boyfriend. You can tell he's a bad boy because he asks if he can drive her home They go on dates at well-lit restaurants. He has a steady job in manufacturing. He wears leather gloves. He likes Peter Frampton. He sounds like a damn youth pastor. What is her mom's problem? So I'm going to stop at this point and actually say, in the beginning of the movie, she is dating this guy from high school. And he is, like, he's absolutely nothing wrong with him. It's exactly all those things that I've just read. Yeah. But of course, the mom hates him and thinks he's a bad influence on her daughter. Yeah, but he really is a normal dude. He's a normal dude. Anyway. And then the description carries on. Things she doesn't have. Job skills, qualifications, money, a clue. This goes exactly where you'd expect. Soon, she's doing porn and cocaine. Oh, California, you devil, tempting pure young maidens with your beaches and temperate climate. So I read the description before. No, exactly. I read the description before I watched the movie, and I was like, I don't care how bad this movie is. I'm watching it. And I'll tell you, it's not that bad. It is typical. It's typical Lifetime made-for-TV movie, all the things. But I mean, it was actually quite an interesting story, a very sad story. To be fair, very sad story. This is a true story. But there are scenes that are so funny. I've put a link there for you, Paulo. Let me just give some context before you watch the scene. You only need to watch about 10 to 15 seconds, but I'm going to give you some context. So she gets to California. She can't get a job anywhere, but then she sees an ad in the paper. Somewhere's looking for models. She goes to see if she can get the job as a model, and they say to her, listen, they were very upfront from the start. They're like, listen, this is nude and semi-nude modeling. That is what this is. She was like, I will do semi-nude. And then, of course, when she goes to the shoot, the photographer's like, but come on, now you can take your top off. Just take your top off. Like the typical. It all just tumbles down. She meets a girl there at the modeling agency. She moves in with her, and this girl is like doing cocaine, and she's like, do you want some? And at first she's like, no, I'm a good girl from the Midwest. I don't do cocaine. And then, of course, as the movie progresses, that changes. You can see where this is all going. Exactly. The modeling dries up. Someone says, hey, have you ever tried doing movies? I've got a movie opportunity for you. It goes exactly like the description, exactly where you think it's going to go. And I mean, the reason I suppose it's a cliche is because this is the thing. And I actually read up, exactly. And I read up about the movie, and her family got a lot of flack for their involvement in making of the movie. So the movie starts in 1980 and it ends in 1984. And the movie came out in 1988. And the family were very involved in getting the movie made because they wanted it to be done as a warning to other potential young girls who think that this is an easy thing to do, to just go off to Hollywood and become famous and rich. Right. And so they kind of were like, we want to warn you. This is what happened to our daughter. We want to warn you. So typically this is what happens, but the scene I want you to watch, because I laughed so much. I actually had to stop it and rewind it and watch it over. Her flatmate is doing cocaine, but you've seen people do cocaine in the movies, in Miami Vice, in TV shows. Mm-hmm. I have never seen anybody do cocaine like this girl does cocaine, because she's using the world's longest straw. Like you do cocaine with a rolled up banknote or a very short straw. That's how it's done. In this scene, she's using like a proper straw that you would put in your Coca-Cola. It's very funny. And then the very next scene, I just want you to see the beginning of it. She's moving into the apartment, and of course, it's a waterbed. What else would it be? It's 1981 or 82. Of course, it's a waterbed. So just click. Yeah, no, exactly. This movie is very 80s. I mean, and this is the thing, is that it was made in the 80s. So it is very 80s. So have a look at that clip that I sent you, because it's so funny.
Do you know how I know it's 80s? So we're going to put this clip up on that 80 Show SA Facebook page.
Well, I'll put the link to the whole movie. It's in the movie, yeah.
Very generous, Dori. There is a fantastic lamp in the background, the type of lamp that you could only get in the 80s, because, fuck, that is a long straw. I thought that is even extra length straw. That is 30 centimeters.
So I showed that scene to my 15-year-old, who has not, to my knowledge, done cocaine, but has, like most of us, seen it being done in movies. And they said, wow, how much snorting power do you need to be able to get the cocaine all the way up that straw?
Do you know that's the truth? Because surely by the time it's halfway, it's lost its potency. So
my God.
That is a massively long story.
Funny. And then there's the waterbed. And I mean, isn't it just this movie has so many 80s things, like proper, because it's made in the 80s. It's not set in the 80s. Yeah, so that's a great thing about it, actually.
Fantastic 80s. Even the door is authentically 80s. Now, Dori.
There's a lot of beige everywhere. So we were always saying that the 80s, early 80s was very brown, but early 80s California was very beige. Very beige. Mm-hmm.
Very beige. Now, Dori, regale me that waterbed, because obviously in the scene that there are two friends, two females. One of them is taking cocaine, and there is a waterbed.
It doesn't go where you think it. No, okay. It doesn't go where you think. It's not that kind of porno. It's a movie about pornos. It's not an actual porno.
Okay. I'm just checking, just for the sake of research.
Checking, yes.
Asking the question like you said earlier.
You're all about the research. Yes. So
this movie, Shattered Innocence.
So I wouldn't say it's a recommendation. I wouldn't say, oh my God, it's a great movie, you must watch it. But I have to say, it was highly entertaining. I managed to sit the whole way through. I was interested the whole way through. It was good.
It's something that you would have watched. You know, Dori, I am scanning just through it. There's a lot of scenes with her in a suitcase. Every time I kind of stop on a scene, she's opening or closing a suitcase. So it's one of those movies that, you know, in South Africa, we had the first kind of cable /satellite network would have a block which was for free, and then the rest was for subscribers. And normally the first, I think they used to run like the free block from 6 to 7, and then they went from 5 to 7. And the first block of paid subscription was at 7 o'clock. And sometimes they wouldn't switch it back over, so people would be able to watch it.
So exciting.
So exciting. They tended to show like low budget stuff then, because they go, look, we're going to tempt people, because obviously it was a ploy, right? It's a marketing ploy.
Yes,
show
of course.
people what they could be watching. Yeah, show what they could be watching. But they tended to put like really low budget crap. But because it was like an extra 30 minutes of something free, you'd watch it. Oh my God, this is amazing. This seems like something that was there. And it seems like something everyone would have watched, but instantly forgotten. Like, I'm telling you, I've watched this movie, but just instantly.
Possibly.
Done, gone. It just blurred into 1980s beigeness. And I think that's...
Beige is definitely the theme. Yeah.
I'd put that on the poster. A movie that blurred into 1980s beigeness.
The poster's nuts, by the way. The poster for it is like very dramatic poster. Yeah.
Does the straw get a credit?
It should. It's one of the largest characters in the movie. It should get a credit.
I mean, the suction power, like even if you had to try drink something with that straw, you would pass out halfway through. Like, don't try that straw with long COVID. You just do not have the lung capacity.
But here's the funniest part. It's not the only scene where people are doing cocaine in the movie, but in the other scenes, they're all using small straws. So what the hell was with that scene?
I mean, cut the straw. You have a straw. It's not like you are sans straw. Because I was thinking, I mean, you have enough money to buy cocaine in the 80s, right? Maybe you don't have a straw, but you've got a straw. You could have 3
I don't think the point of this movie was for us to debate the length of the straw, and yet that is what has happened. So sorry to this poor girl's family who wanted this movie to have a whole different kind of impact. So sorry.
That a completely different message. We're like, but you see, this is why you'll sometimes watch a movie, right? And they tell you about the like Pixar movies. No, we had to get the hair moving. Apparently, like the new Little Mermaid, right? It's the first time Pixar have actually been able to get hair underwater, right? So
that's what I've heard is amazing about the movie. That specifically. Okay. The people I know who've watched this movie have said, you must see how amazing their hair is underwater. That's what they've said. Those were their words.
Like, honestly, who knows what your hair looks like? I know it's certainly not me. But I mean, okay, but it's one of those painstaking things that people do.
For our listeners who don't know, Paulo has no hair. Sorry, just had to explain.
I I have no hair. I lost it in an unfortunate I was trying to get a George Michael hairstyle, and it just ended in fire and a restraining order for me. So the thing is, it's that level of detail, right, that nobody notices unless you get it wrong. That's why they're so painstaking. Right. People have cocaine in a straw, but it's that level, that minutia that just take you out the moment. And I go, I'm not worried. It's like, these are too young. They obviously have a problem. They're using drugs. They shouldn't be using drugs. Oh, that straw's too big.
But what the hell is that straw? Exactly.
How is that? I'm going to go to the credits. I'm going to find the straw must be in there. Strawy McStrawsville is the star of this movie.
Strawy McStrawsville. Anyway, this is a serious movie, Paulo, with a serious message, and it's very sad, and that's all I have to say about that.
Yes. Okay. Well done. Thank you. Thank you for bringing that to the table. That is shattered innocence with a big straw. They probably shattered the innocence with the straw. It's a huge fucking straw. Okay. Yeah. I want to tell you about a movie. We've definitely spoken about this story before. I've had this movie on my list. Okay, so last week, 2 weeks ago, we spoke about Sylvester Stallone and Dolly Parton in a movie called Rhinestone. So you have Sylvester Stallone as a cowboy, effectively, right?
Right.
Then last week, we spoke about John Travolta wanted to be in Big. He wanted to take Tom Hanks's, he wanted the role.
Yeah,
Tom Hanks eventually got in Big, right? So, did you hear what I dropped?
Was that your marbles? It felt like it sounded like you're losing your marbles.
It was the straw. I dropped the straw from the movie. Okay.
Was it the last straw?
It was the only straw. That is the last straw. So I really should get a different floor when I'm recording. But anyway, right. So okay, you got Sylvester Stallone as a cowboy. Then you got John Travolta in Big. Imagine a world where John Travolta is a cowboy. And he's big, maybe. Okay. Dori, have you ever watched a John Travolta movie from 1980, cusping? So John Travolta is a massive star at this point.
Yeah.
Can do no wrong. A movie called Urban Cowboy.
I think I've heard of it, but I don't think I've watched it.
Right. So what was happening in America at this time in culture is that this concept of the urban cowboy, right, came into the zeitgeist. There was a magazine article that tracked this concept of cowboys, but in the city. And there were sunny honky-tonk bars opening up. And it wasn't odd to see in the middle of New York City a cowboy, someone dressed as a cowboy and not from the village people, right?
Right.
So,
okay.
Hollywood was an Esquire magazine story. So Hollywood decides, we're going to make a movie about this. We're going to use today's biggest star and to make a movie called Urban Cowboy. So John Travolta is Urban Cowboy with the worst. Now think about John Travolta, how he spoke in Saturday Night Fever, right? We got it. Typical New York, Italian American type. That's how he spoke. Welcome Back, Kotter. That's how he spoke, right? That's the TV show he's in, right? I think Welcome Back, Kotter. Yeah. So
I don't know.
That's how he spoke.
I'm trusting you.
I don't know who Michael J. Fox was married to, so I wouldn't. But
exactly.
Despite watching the movie. Anyway. So, Urban Cowboy, John Travolta with the worst Midwestern accent like you can ever imagine. Imagine, when they deep fake stuff? And imagine that, but worse. It's a terrible accent, right?
Do we hear it in the trailer? Because I'll watch the trailer as soon as possible.
In the trailer's going up. Okay. That 80 Show SA Facebook page. So, he plays a guy called Buford Bud Davis. He's from Texas. And
that's a name.
Buford Bud Davis. And he moves to take a job at an oil refinery. But of course, he's got to go out at night, and he spends his time hanging out at a bar called Gillies. Okay, meets a girl, they fall in love. It's love at first sight. They get together, they get married, they go live in his trailer home. But then they just start quarreling. Okay, they start quarreling. Okay, now it's a mess of a movie, right, at this point. So it's kind of like boy meets girl, boy falls in love with girl, and then domestication. And they go, oh, I hate movies about domestication because, like, that's life. Like, why must I watch a movie that's like with people's trials and tribulations in their life?
Who plays the girl, by the way?
Deborah Winger.
Okay.
Yeah, Deborah Winger. So, pretty good couple. Okay. But it's not silly enough at this point. So Deborah Winger so badly wants to ride the mechanical bull at the bar called Gillies.
Oh my God, I know this.
And John Travolta,
I know this. Okay.
Wife of mine is riding the mechanical bull. Okay. It's such a challenge.
Familiar.
It ruins their marriage. That they just start arguing.
Well, Paulo, because it's not about the mechanical bull. That's why it ruins their marriage. The bull is just a mere symbol of the problem in their relationship.
Well, I think the problem in the relationship is that she goes back to the bar and gets mechanical bull lessons from another guy, Bob, who was a former rodeo champion. I think
who plays
wanting
Bob?
To have sex with Bob is not a guy called Scott Glenn. He's a guy you've seen.
I know Scott Glenn. I know Scott Glenn. Yes.
I can't. He's one of those guys. So they now start falling in love. John Travolta's character goes, "Fuck you! I'm going to fall in love with somebody else at Gillies." Okay, some patron, another girl that goes to Gillies, who happens to be the daughter of a rich oilsman. Okay, so she's super rich, but she's hanging out in a dive bar. God knows what's going on. And they fight. And that's it. And it all ends in this culmination of we're going to have this mechanical bull riding contest. And the winner gets $5,000.
And the girl.
And the girl. But then it's at this point, I'm like, what have you done here? This whole thing is around riding mechanical bulls with not a hint of humor. It's like nobody realizes.
It's serious.
No, they take it very seriously. Bonnie Raitt's in this movie as well, playing herself. They take it very seriously, the whole thing. And you're going, what?
It sounds horrible. It sounds really horrible. But I think I might have seen it because as soon as you said mechanical bull, I had this weird flash of memory.
Yeah.
So I think I might have seen it.
You've seen it. It's John Travolta, fresh out of Saturday Night Fever, as a cowboy. Now, there was a whole article, like I said, there was a whole this trend in Urban Cowboys. And you go, why did Urban Cowboys just not become a thing? Firstly, because it's lame. But secondly, because this movie probably killed the whole thing. And people went, ooh. Like, you remember like in the 2000s when Coyote Ugly kind of bought cowboy stuff back in? Do you remember that? Do you remember that brief little period in the early 2000s?
Terrible movie. Yeah.
But I remember going in my student days to like Coyote Ugly bars, right? Every bar you went to suddenly had a Coyote Ugly type vibe. People were dressing as cowboys. It was cowboy chic. The waitresses were dancing on tables on the bar counter. Every now and again, every generation, try to bring back cowboys and it doesn't work. And
I mean, for me, cowboys are eternal. I love me a good old-fashioned Western. I really do.
Do you?
I kind of like, like the original season of Westworld where it was set in, when
it was good, yeah.
Western town. When it was good, exactly. I kind of like that, but don't try and bring it back. Leave it where it is.
Okay, well, this movie, leave it where it is. I am pretty sure we
sounds terrible.
John Travolta, using all the powers available to him, is probably plotting a remake of this movie. He goes, you know what?
Oh my God.
I wasn't able to tell my story. Now I'm John Travolta. I can make things happen. We're doing Urban Cowboy Dos. And it's going to be...
we both brought really dodgy movies this week. Like really dodgy. But I think that there's probably something redeemable in each of them. You know, give them a try.
There definitely is. Well, look, up till now, we've given you 4 options of things to watch. Michael J. Fox,
exactly.
Town Called Malice, Shattered Innocence, or Urban Cowboy. So you can't say that we've not spoilt you for choice. Okay?
Exactly.
We've spoiled you
I'm going with A Town Called Malice, and at some point I will prepare myself to watch still. But I have to prepare emotionally.
You know what's a good palate cleanser? I think watch... If you don't have the appetite to watch Michael J. Fox still right through, I think go 30 minutes still, an episode of A Town Called Malice. Another 30 minutes still, episode of Town Called Malice. I think that's going to give you a nice kind of, you'll deal with it. I think that's a good recommendation. Then, on that final day that's coming soon when the whole world ends and you have to watch, you're going to watch one final thing. Watch Shattered Innocence, because then the world will explode and you'll have no memory of watching it. And then when you're floating around in space as a little particle, watch Urban Cowboy. Then that's how you're doing it. Dori, we're going to wrap it. Listen, lots of loose ends you got to wrap up. Finally, there's been a definitive answer. Because also, what's a lot out there, there's a lot of Arnold Schwarzenegger content on Netflix. A lot. Right?
There's a lot, hey? There's like a documentary, and then there's a series with him in. And I know every time I put Netflix on, there is Arnie flexing his muscles in my face.
There it is, right? So 100% right. There is the documentary of his life story. There is a TV show called Fubar, which is...
I haven't tried it.
It is, I got to tell you, it's not set in 80s. It's not. It is 80s in spirit. It brought to me the most ridiculous, it's very 80s, like Magnum / A-Team feeling. It's got that weird action, like we're action, but we also realize we're fun that the A-Team had. There was a couple of scenes where I was like, oh my God, this feels like the A-Team.
So is it good? Is it worth watching?
It's so silly. It is so
because
silly.
Netflix gives me like a 99% match on it, and I'm like, all right, I'll get to it maybe.
It is contrived. It is predictable. It is hammed up to shit.
I reckon. I reckon I got the match. Because of that Rob Lowe series that we watched, Unstable. That's probably why I got this match. Yeah.
The Breakfast Club is on Netflix. So it's
really.
It's gonna. And I'll tell you what. 2 things. Breakfast Club's on Netflix. My wife goes, you know, I've never actually watched the Netflix, the Breakfast Club. She says, I've seen it, but I've never watched it in one go. So she watched it. They've redone the sound. So there are parts where the sound's just so off. Because, you know, in the 80s, you had that terrible sound on everything.
Yeah.
They've redone the sound, and there are parts where, the sound just doesn't.
Now I know that Netflix does not know me like it claims to know me. Because I did not know that the Breakfast Club was on Netflix. Netflix did not tell me. It does not know me at all. It
should have found you, because if it goes, you like Rob Lowe, you like Schwarzenegger, but then you're definitely going to like Breakfast Club.
I mean, also anything that's ever been anything 80s on Netflix, which there's not a lot of.
Not a lot.
Hint, hint. Not a lot. I've watched.
We see. Okay.
I'm so disappointed.
But you'd be disappointed no longer, because Sylvester Stallone this week said... definitive.
Yeah.
I admit that Arnold Schwarzenegger was the better action guy in the 80s. Sylvester Stallone admitted this. Yeah. They're friends now. They were painted as rivals. He says they were rivals. He says there was a period where if he found out Arnold Schwarzenegger was up for a movie, he wanted it more than anything. He didn't care if it fitted him. He didn't care. He just wanted it, because that's how they were pitched at the time. They're friends now. But he says why he has a better action icon is he says that my characters, the Sylvester Stallone, were not overly gifted. We're fighters. We're scrappy. We usually got beaten up a lot, right? We weren't the best. We fought through it. He says where Arnold Schwarzenegger's characters are always just bulletproof. He's like, Arnold Schwarzenegger will go fight a dragon and come out with a Band-Aid, where my guys like had eyes knocked out, like we just really got beaten up. So in terms of characters and as an action star, he was Mr. Action. You cannot hurt me, where I was a little bit different. I was going to get beaten up and I was going to get through it. So Sylvester Stallone says Arnie can have it.
Okay, I'm arguing. I'm going to argue because if you had to say to me, yeah, maybe. I'm going to argue because if you had to say to me, it's Friday night, here's the popcorn, you can either watch The Terminator or Cobra, I'm going with Cobra.
Oh my God, that is such a tough choice. Jesus, what have you done here? I mean,
but come on.
I'm a huge fan of anything from Canon. I love the fact that Cobra was made as a response to Sylvester Stallone's rewrite of Beverly Hills Cop. So I love all that. The original Terminator.
Brigitte Nielsen on a motorbike.
No, but the original Terminator when Schwarzenegger's a bad guy. Well, kind of a bad guy. Starts as a bad guy. Oh, that is a Sophie's choice. That is really a Sophie's choice.
Well, I have chosen. I choose Sly.
You know what? Gut says to me, do Terminator. Gut says to me, Terminator.
Okay.
See, this is fantastic conversations we have on that 80s show. No way relevant to anything in today's real life. But one quick thing. I noticed Smooth Operator trending. I noticed it's kind of back on and suggested on the streaming charts. It's back. I was like, Sade, has she died? No. Sade's still alive. God. Why is Smooth Operator trending? TikTok, Dori. There's a TikTok thing. It's called Sade, but have you seen it? Sade.
No. I'm saying TikTok brings old songs back.
It does. So Sade is the latest 80s person, had her song brought back by TikTok. It's a trend called Sade, but make it house. And it is Smooth Operator, but remixed with a house beat. I don't know why it's trending. It's not terrible. They've actually done it really well. But all it made me want to do is listen to the original Smooth Operator, which most people did because the song's like super streamed. People are really into it. We're going to finish off the show today on the live stream with it.
Wow, and that's like probably the closest you've ever come to playing a ballad. So well done.
Definitely. I mean, I kind of categorize the songs we play on this stock Aitken Waterman 4x4. 4 to the floor kind of beat structure. Anything kind of in that range gets played. So Sade is very smooth, but I'm feeling I don't know, feeling smooth today. Smooth. So
are you touching your head?
I'm not. I don't keep my hair as short in winter. It's cold to do it. I'm like twisting my shoulders around. That's what I'm doing. I don't know if that means smooth or watch me. Don't let me around schools, but that's what I'm doing.
Wow. Cool. I'll check out the Sade but make it house trend.
You're going to find it on that 80 Show SA Facebook page. You don't even have to check it out. We curate because that's a word all the marketing people use. We curate all the 80s information. Somebody said to me the other day, where do you find the content for that 80 Show? And I said, I lie. Most of it is made up. And the stuff not made up, we put proof. We put proof on that 80 Show SA Facebook page. Dori, a lot of movie chat this week. I thought we were actually going to have time for Wham Corner. I know the Wham documentary is coming out soon. We count down the days. Still no Andrew Ridgeley up in my DMs. But that's okay. We'll get there. That 80 Show SA Facebook page. Thanks for joining me, Dori.
Okay. Bye-bye.